The old world is gone, and the novelty of the age that we're coming into is progressing in such a way that the collective consciousness is not, in my estimation, going to be able to handle a lot of the changes coming. And so what we have to make sure that we are doing is that we are fortifying our minds, we are fortifying our wills, and we are desexualizing our minds so that we can live in the spirit and truth of the time. Now, in this Semen Retention Sunday episode, which we do every Sunday here on the Regal Change channel, because I think it's important for men to understand what exactly semen retention is and why it's so impactful. And I think that if every man was able to really control his sexual urges, we would see the de-escalation of women acting like whores. We would see the de-escalation of men being simps. We would see the de-escalation of men and women wars, like these gender wars. We would see the ending of race wars. We would see the ending of all of these different things that the people in power, whoever they are, because some of them we just see in the shadows almost, whoever these people are that are trying to pull certain strings, they don't want to see a thriving civilization of humanity. And the world doesn't want you to know about semen retention as a man. And if you're a woman watching this perhaps, the world doesn't want you to know about the powers that you can have being celibate and just practicing celibacy and purity in mind, body, and soul. Now, when I say it's about fortifying your mind or anything like that, I want to be mindful of the psychology and the idolization of the mind, because anything that you are propagating up in psychology or philosophy that has no soul, that is idolatry of the mind, or of something else that resembles a spirit but actually isn't a spirit. In fact, you could be idolizing a demonic spirit without even knowing it. But the world doesn't want you to know about semen retention. The world doesn't want you to know about being a solid individual that is striving to be the best version of him or herself each and every day. You see, when you are somebody that is every day becoming better than anybody else ever thought you could be, the world powers that be despise that. And it's because the more that you grow closer to God, the further away from worldliness you become as well. And when that happens, things are going to get tense. And this is going to be a battle, not just externally, spiritually speaking, but internally it's going to be a battle, because as Alexander Solzhenitsyn has said, who wrote the Gulag Archipelago, the line between good and evil runs between the heart of every man and woman. Well, what exactly does he mean by that? He means that if you are not necessarily paying attention to the inner world just as much as the external world, you might be committing atrocities and calling them beautified situations or beautified opportunities, whatever the case may be. The idolization of these demonic and evil wickedness ways could be something that you're missing. And one of those is playing with yourself or watching porn, or, because I can't say it on YouTube necessarily, but on X and Rumble here, for the people listening on X and Rumble, we can say that, but because I'll post this on YouTube as well, I won't be saying that word. But corn, it's playing with yourself, fornication, adultery, all of these things. The world wants you to stay stuck in these kinds of ways of being and manipulated by the powers that be in the world, because Satan is the prince of the world and he is the ruler of the world. But we have to recognize that we as interdimensional beings are of the world, but we're not necessarily in it. Like, we are playing a part in the grand scheme of life, but we're not necessarily in the world as godly people. We have to be set apart, like the Bible says. And as chosen ones, God's chosen people, you are going to be a peculiar people. That's also according to the Bible. So what we can really establish is some kind of grounding in what reality actually is. So when I say we are interdimensional beings, what I mean is time is an illusion. Time isn't necessarily real. Has anybody ever looked around to really see how kind of strange it is that everybody has these biological bodies in which they grow in consciousness and they grow in experience and they grow in awareness, all for it to just disappear one day? Like, you dissolve and you decompose back into the earth. Like, isn't that kind of strange? Like, isn't it kind of weird that we live in a universe where that happens? Like, isn't the fact that there's anything at all kind of strange? Like, these are the kinds of questions that I ponder myself in more of the existential way, but in a positive existential way. I'm not necessarily a negative existentialist, so to speak. But what I would say and what I would recommend to people, because I had a dream last night that I want to share. I was going through a class, and I was not necessarily the teacher, but I wasn't necessarily the student either in this class. And there was a big projector, like a hologram of the world. And if I put my finger through it, I showed the class that if I run my finger through this hologram, I'm moving through a three-dimensional space two-dimensionally. And because it's not moving, it's staying in place. It's not a transformable substance-like object. This is not a object or transcendental object. It's a transcendental substance, which is the spirit. This is just more like an object, okay? So I can move as a three-dimensional being. I can move my way two-dimensionally. And so then I said to the class, well, what do you guys think would happen if I am a four-dimensional or a five-dimensional being, but I move through the space three-dimensionally? Is that possible? Well, of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. And all the students in the class had their minds just, they were minds blown. And they never thought about it like that. And so what we have to recognize is that man exists in a plane of consciousness that is in between heaven and hell. And heaven and hell are not necessarily places, even though they can be places, and they kind of, I want to be very careful with my phrasing here, because they are places, but they also can be or cannot be places. Life is a paradox. And so I know a lot of the Christians will maybe be a little confused by this, but I want you guys to stay with me for a second and really try to understand what I'm saying and listen to what I'm saying here. So a place in your mind, let's say, think back to a memory that you have. Where is that memory exactly? You can pause this for a second and answer the question in the comment section if you want. But where is that memory that you have? Where exactly is it? Because it happened in the world that we live in, right? It happened in the externalities of the world. But it's placed inside you. It's placed in your memory. And your memory is like a form. This is why I say the spirit is a transcendental substance, because you can recall something and you can think about something in your mind, while externally it's not the case. Like, externally what's going on is not necessarily a direct reflection of your inner world. But when you are dreaming, for example, or when you have a daydream or an illusion or a hallucination, which I'm not saying like you should have a hallucination or anything like that. I'm just saying that there have been documented instances where people have had hallucinations. And but specifically with dreams here, I want to focus on dreams. If you have a dream, where is that dream taking place? And a lot of the times people will say, oh, it's just a dream. Yeah, but what the hell was that? Like, what was that dream? Where was it? Well, it's existing in a state of timelessness. So it's a place of timelessness. It's a state of timelessness. It's a substance. It's a transcendental substance. That's what I like to call it. It's not an object. It's not like a cup. Okay? It's not a pen. It's a substance that you can experience. And so life, more or less, the physical world, like the physical world here, we experience, we move everything with our minds. Now, why is this all related to semen retention? What does this have to do with semen retention? Because I've been going on about this for a minute, right? Semen retention will connect you to powers and obstacles spiritually that you never knew even existed. And the closer you desexualize, the more you desexualize your mind, the easier it's going to be to see reality for what it truly is. And that's exactly what the point is. And that's why I'm going through all this. This is stuff that people don't want you to know about. This is stuff that is not taught in school, public school, that is. This is stuff that is not taught in universities either, because they don't know. These university professors, some of these university professors, I had some of the smartest professors and people I've ever met. Only a handful, but because most of them were just regurgitating information. But they were very smart, and they were not insignificantly educated. Like, these people were highly educated. But there was still something missing. There was still something missing to the teaching, and that was the soul. And that's why I say psychology and philosophy without soul is idolatry of the mind. Okay? So, semen retention will give you the opportunity to look at life in a new way. It'll give you the opportunity to look at life in a very unique way. That is, if you have the intentions to actually move in the way that you want to grow closer to God. You want to learn more about reality. You want to learn more about truth. Because a truth seeker is ultimately going to be the one that makes it in this world. Because that is what a truth seeker is also a creator. And the more that you create, the more that you play a part in the collective will of mankind. And because all art inspires other art, right? But also all of life inspires all of other life. And so we have to look at life as a transcendental substance, where Jesus says that he's going to give us everlasting life. That's a transcendental substance. Terence McKenna called this the transcendental object at the end of time, is what he presumed to be what he got from the psychedelics and all of that. I disagree with that. I don't think it's an object. I think it's a substance. I think it's a transcendental substance. And I think that he was caught up in these, because of the amount of psychedelics he had, he was caught up in the occult and the demonic realm so much. And don't get me wrong, I think it's wise to learn about these occults and the esoteric and all of the demonic ways in which demons operate, because then you know how to defend yourself. I studied under witches for about 1.5 years or so, a few years back, just because I wanted to learn about what they were actually believing and doing, and the way that they used crystals and all these new agers and all this stuff. Like, they were completely in it for the material, and they thought they were spiritual. That was what was most mind-blowing to me. It's like, they knew the powers of spirituality, but chose to live a life that gained materialistically. Everything they did for spiritual reasons, and all the knowledge that they had for spiritual reasons, they wanted to gain materialistically. not me, not people that are actually godly. We study spirituality so we can gain in wisdom and understanding and spirit and truth. And God will naturally give us what we need materialistically and what we deserve materialistically. So with all this being said, the more you grow closer to God on semen retention, the more you're going to have these kinds of really big moments of realization. And you have to have the fortitude of mind to look at this and accept what's happening, because otherwise, like I said at the beginning of this video, the collective consciousness is moving very fast. And a lot of people are not going to be able to handle it. But if you can retain your seed, if you can desexualize your mind and focus on the bigger picture, things are going to look a lot more clear to you by the day. So with all that being said, if you do want to join a godly community where people are training their minds, bodies, and souls and spirits at a level unprecedented, the electric energy that I've seen in the Regal Change Academy community right now is just amazing. And to see the kind of growth that we've had within the last few months with everybody joining has been amazing to witness as well. And to just continue to build with actual godly people has been a blessing for sure. And to provide people with the proper education and services that they need to really thrive in this crazy, chaotic world. But if you want to join that, we have the paid academy in the link in the description box below, where we meet once a week with Bible studies, as well as a group weekly call. That's kind of a silly tongue twister there for a second. But sometimes my mind works super fast, and my mouth and my mind is not always on par with each other, because I'm pretty a quiet guy actually, out and about. YouTube videos are really when I talk the most, which is kind of ironic. But we also have the free Discord community as well for you to join for the Regal Change Academy. I do want to thank everybody moving from the YouTube platform over to X and Rumble recently, and for all the DMs on Instagram that I've been getting. I really appreciate your guys' support. And with all that being said, peace be with you all. Till next time.